Good afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting of the Board of Public Utilities for the City of Santa Rosa to order. If we may have a roll call, please.
Board Member Wright.
Here.
Board Member Grable.
Here.
Board Member Bartholow. Here. Board Member Badenfort.
Here.
Vice Chair Arnone.
Here.
And Chair Galvin.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all board members are present.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is the oath of office for our new board member, Mr. Dwayne DeWitt. Mr. DeWitt, if you want to come down and be sworn in, we'll welcome you to the dais. Again, welcome Board Member DeWitt. At this time, if you'd like to make any remarks regarding your new position, we're happy to hear from you.
For a number of years, I've been fortunate to come to this body and watch it in action, and I will do my best to be as helpful as I can on many of the issues that were of concern even back then, up to now, and for the next 30 years in the future. Thank you kindly.
Very good. Again, welcome. Any board member comments or questions?
I would just like to welcome Mr. DeWitt to the board. We've had a chance to talk to each other over the course of a number of years and through several boards, and I'm looking forward to serving with you on this board.
I think that the board as a whole welcomes you, and we look forward to working with you. And we have challenging things ahead of us, and we'll call on your expertise and value your opinions.
I hope to lessen the challenge.
Good, that'd be great. At this time, we'll open up for public comments on item.
Chris had a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I just wanted to say welcome to Mr. DeWitt, and it's an honor. And Dwayne worked with my dad many years ago on housing and civil rights issues here in Santa Rosa, and then I was honored to have him actually as commencement speaker at our graduation. We both graduated out of the College of Environmental Design and Urban Studies at the same time, and it's an honor to sit next to you here.
Honor to be with the class.
All right, at this time now we'll open up for public comments on item number 3. If you wish to make the public comment, please move to the podium. Seeing none, that'll take care of item number 3. Any statements of abstention by board members? Hearing none, we have no study sessions. The next is item 6.1, the approval of the minutes from June 20th, 2024. We'll take public comment on the approval of the minutes. Seeing no one rise, the minutes will be entered. We'll now move to our staff briefings. Item 7.1, Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin, and welcome new board member DeWitt. It's my pleasure to introduce our first staff briefing, which is our Kelly Farm California Tiger Salamander Mitigation Bank update, and Sean McNeil, our Deputy Director of Environmental Services, will be making the presentation.
Good afternoon, Chair Galvin and members of the board. I'm happy to bring this update on the Kelly Farm California Tiger Salamander Mitigation Bank. My name is Sean McNeil, Deputy Director of Environmental Services. Let's hold on. Do I need to be in the Zoom?
Chair, could we take a brief recess so we can get our IT department to fix the connection?
That'd be fine. We'll be in recess shortly.
Thank you.
This was a little ajar. This
All right, we are back in session.
All right, I'll just take it from the top. Good afternoon, Chair Galvin, members of the board. My name is Sean McNeil, and I'm here to give an update on the Kelly Farm California Tiger Salamander Mitigation Bank. I'm going to go over the project as a whole, just kind of give you a brief overview of that, update you on the current status, where we are with the project, talk a little bit about the easement contract that we did bring to the subcommittee to review, and then discuss the next steps in the project. So the overview of this project really is we're looking to develop a California Tiger Salamander Mitigation Bank. And up here on that image you see in the bright green area, that is multiple parcels that we collectively call Kelly Farm. And on one of those parcels outlined in red there is where we're planning to do the mitigation bank. It's approximately 100 acres. It's got some natural wetland features on there. They're not operating as well as wetlands as they could. It's been in ag hay production for many years. And so we thought we could convert this over to a tiger salamander mitigation bank. In the early 2000s, we did tiger salamander drift fence monitoring, which is a mechanism for determining if you have tiger salamanders on a property on many of our major farms, Brown Farm, Alpha Farm, and Kelly Farm, and the only one of those 3 farms that we found them on was Kelly Farm. And so that was a 2-year study. And so we thought Kelly Farm would be the ideal location for a mitigation bank. And that this location on Kelly Farm, outlined in red here, is adjacent to a known breeding pool of tiger salamanders on a private parcel just to the south of it. That makes this property ideal for raising salamanders and for the mitigation bank to be ultimately successful in protecting the species. Historically, the site has been leased for hay production. The leases have run out on this section. We have worked with farmers to continue to remove the hay, but we've stopped irrigating with recycled water. And what we've seen over the last 3 years is a dramatic reduction in nutrients in the soil, which is better for the types of mitigations that we're trying to do there. So we feel that the property is well suited to meet the conditions of creating a tiger salamander mitigation bank as well as some wetlands. Estimated costs of establishing the 100-acre bank, and I just wanted to say these are estimated because we're still in the process of getting approval for our project design, and the final design is what's ultimately going to drive what the ultimate costs will be. But we do know that the studies and fees and permitting and design is about $650,000. That we've already contracted. Construction right now, we're estimating approximately around $5 million. That could go up or down depending on design. Interim monitoring and management, this is for the 5 years after the bank gets established. We will be on the hook for direct funding, the monitoring for that, and we're estimating that at about $250,000. And then after that 5 years, we'll have put money in an endowment. We're estimating at $2 million, but after that 5 years, that endowment should cover all of the ongoing monitoring and maintenance requirements for the bank. So there would be no additional expenses. So the money made from the investments from that endowment should return enough money for the long-term maintenance. So that gives us a total for the bank about $7.9 million. Currently, right now, the cheapest price to get tiger salamander credits is about $200,000 an acre, which is a credit. We have seen smaller projects that might need less than an acre of credit pay higher per acre costs. So we've seen up to $315,000 for partial credits, just because there's a lot of transaction expenses that go along with that. So, but just to be conservative, based on today's costs for tiger salamander credits, if we had to buy 100 acres, it would cost us about $20 million if we bought them today. Meaning that on today's dollars, we would save the ratepayers $12.1 million in mitigation requirements based on us deriving our own bank. So we think it's a good investment of ratepayer fees. We have a number of projects that will require mitigation credits that are coming up. Two of note are the flood wall that we're planning to go around the wastewater treatment plant. Could need anywhere from 20 to 60 acres of credit. And then we also are looking at lining our sewer trunks as they go through tiger salamander habitat, and that activity has impacts to tiger salamanders, and we have to mitigate for that. So, and that could be another 5 to 20 acres of credits depending on the projects and when they get built and the agency reviews of those. So we do see that we need these credits. So it's not just something theoretically if we have them, but it's something we really need. So the project right now, the current status, we have completed the biological surveys for the program. So we've identified the wetlands that are existing out there. We've looked at the plant species. We've done rare plant species for multiple years in a row so that we meet the Fish and Wildlife Service protocols. We've developed a prospectus, a bank prospectus, which basically spells out how the program will work. And that has been accepted by the interagency review team, which are a mix of the regulatory agencies that oversee this kind of bank development. We've developed a 90% draft construction plans. We've received some feedback from the interagency banking team on that, and we're modifying those plans to meet some of their requirements or requests. And then we're in the process of developing the conservation easement and endowment for easement services, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So we did, in January 2nd, 2024, we put out a request for proposals for getting somebody to manage the easement on this property. This is a third-party entity that's licensed to manage the money, so they would hold our $2 million if that's what it's determined our endowment would be. They would hold the easement, and they would ensure that our activities are in alignment with the easement. They will negotiate that easement with the resource agencies, and once that negotiation is done, the city will then know how much money we'll need to put in the endowment. So that's why we don't know that yet. So to review the proposals, we received two by the date of January 30th. We put together a review panel that consisted of myself, the associate civil engineer who's managing the project, and the senior environmental specialist who specializes in tiger salamanders work. We reviewed the evaluation criteria was the responsiveness to the request for proposals, the work plan that they proposed, did that make sense? The qualifications of the organization, have they done this type of work before? What does that look like? And their ability to perform the work, do they have the staff that we need to pull this bank off and manage this process? And looking at their experience and technical ability. Staff unanimously selected the Center for Natural Lands Management, and predominantly they stood out because they had greater experience with conservation easements. The other firm was really more involved in agricultural easements, and they had a higher quality proposal. So that's what we chose. As we were entering into the contract process, we did bring this to the contract review subcommittee May 1st, 2024. And as we were passing the contract around to them, they had decided that they did not want us to fund any of the endowment yet until they had been approved. So the original contract that we brought to the subcommittee was for $251,975. They removed the endowment funds from that contract, and that reduced the contract amount to $39,683 at this point. So that was below the threshold to bring it to the Board of Public Utilities, so we had the Assistant City Manager approve that contract. So the next steps would be for the city to work with the Center of Natural Lands Management to develop the conservation easement, get that approved. Once that's approved, from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, will give authorization for them to hold the easement. They're not worth anything to the city unless they can get that authorization. They've done it in the past, so we think that they'll be able to do that here, but we need that. So it safeguards the city by us waiting to give them money for the easement until after that approval comes in. And then we will work, once that comes in and the final contract amount will be modified, and that will come to the BPU. And it's our estimate that will probably be closer in the neighborhood of about $2 million, because it would include the endowment, which will ultimately would be our money sitting in their account generating interest that we eventually each year will get funds for to maintain the property. We also need to work with Open Space District to subordinate the open space conservation easement to this new conservation easement. So we've already started conversations with them and have coordinated the language with them. We just need to, once we get approval for this entity to be the signatory conservation easement holder, we can finalize that document. And then we would then, once all that's done, we can finalize the construction plans and put the project out to bid. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. We'll open it up for any board member questions or comments. Board Member Wright.
And thank you for the presentation. I certainly support this concept. I know as being an engineer, I've had to buy these credits many times. And my experience has always been when I want to buy them, nobody wants to sell them, so the price, of course, goes up. And it's nice to be able to control that. So I applaud the city for that. So will this streamline the process at all of acquiring the credits? I assume we still have to negotiate with the Army Corps and all those people on what whether it's 1 acre to 1 acre or 2 acres to 1 acre, all that kind of stuff? How does that all going to play out? I got a couple questions. I'll just give them all to you. And then I guess that's the ratio. And then will we, is there a provision in here to work with other local agencies if they need credits that we can sell them to them? And those are my questions. Thank you.
Great. So the first question, will it streamline? So there's two parts. There's the permitting process, which I think is what you're talking about. The permitting process also has embedded in it the conservation, the mitigation. So our process right now, where we have to put out a request for proposals and basically enter into a real estate transaction with another firm before we can finalize the permits to show that we have met the criteria of our project not having any impact. So if you have a project that impacts tiger salamander habitat and you have a mitigation, they need to balance each other out. So what us owning our own mitigation bank does is we no longer need that real estate transaction in the middle to happen. So we're able to create those documents ourselves, and then we track our credits and all of that. Instead of having a mitigation banker do that, we would do that on our side. So it would definitely reduce the time by about 4 to 5 months just by having our own internal handling of that. So the second question regarding whether or not we could sell these credits to other entities, we cannot. And that's stipulated basically in our conservation easement that we have with Open Space District. We are not allowed to commercialize the properties that are under that conservation easement. So it's been determined from open space that as long as we're using them for our needs, that, and we have worked with the EPA and the State Water Resources Control Board, who also concur that this is in alignment with their intended uses of the property, because they had given the city grants to help purchase these properties back in the 80s. So we've gone through a long legacy of what's encumbered on this title for the property, and the only way that we can get out of that would be to vacate that conservation easement. And I don't see that it's in our best interest to do so, and it would not be easy.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Arnone?
So if we can't commercialize them, I know with like phosphorus credits, we have a problem with expiration dates. And sometimes credits don't last forever and you have to use them or lose them. Is there any expiration date on the salamander habitat credits that we will be generating through this project?
No, so once you generate the credits, as long as the bank is in good standing. So if we did not maintain the bank in good standing, the agencies could pull those credits from us. So we will be doing monitoring, and that's why they have the endowments, and they're requiring the endowments be put up so that nobody could claim poor and leave these credits. So not only after we've used all the credits, the endowment should maintain that property in perpetuity. So, so they do not expire, and neither does our requirement to maintain the property.
Board Member Bartholow?
Thank you for the presentation. I also support this. It's a win-win for the tiger salamander and for Santa Rosa Water. My question is around the $5 million construction cost. I'm just curious. Looking at the photo, there's nothing there. I know it was an ag hay farm apparently at one point, but I'm just curious, what kind of construction things happen on a salamander mitigation bank?
Great, that's a great question. And when I have better detailed drawings, I will bring those to you. But most of the expenses are going to be related to there's fencing around the property, and we're going to need to be grazing, most likely with cattle. So it's going to need to be a cattle fence, and we're choosing not to go with a wooden fence, but a metal fence, metal post fence, so that has longer lasting. But the wetlands, when you develop a tiger salamander breeding pool, you need to make sure that it's going to hold water long enough for the tiger salamanders who are adults and breathing with lungs to lay their eggs in there, and for those eggs to hatch as larvae and develop all the way as they're using gills till they get their lungs. And that is a number of months that needs to stay inundated. So we will be excavating out soil, bringing in clay or some bentonite mix to over-excavate these wetlands and then put that bottom in there. And so it's a lot of grading work to make sure that the pools have adequate space to fill the pool and to hold the water that comes in there, and that when they do spill over, that they spill into each other in such a way that we're maximizing the amount of rain. So it's a performance base. We need to show that tiger salamanders are surviving on this property and doing well. So we're really making sure that these wetlands are constructed in a way that will last in different precipitation regimes. So ideally in drought years, it would still work, and in heavy rainfall years, it's not gonna cause flooding on their neighbors or other things. So all of those things, it really comes down to very fine-tuned grading is probably some of the most expensive. We're also proposing to put a well out there so that we can provide water to the cattle instead of trucking it. We think that'll have longer term, and all of those things, and the abandonment of the existing irrigation also is another cost.
Board Member Badenfort?
Thank you very much, I appreciate it. I don't have a big question, I just wanted to share my support. Well, we could kind of talk for a million years about CTS mitigation and the structure and the complexity and the cost and the this and that. It sounds like a responsible, cost-effective, hopefully efficient project. Hopefully it proves useful for the city and for our local projects. So thanks for your good work. And just a simple one around monitoring. Is the $250,000 for the 5 years of monitoring? Fantastic, thanks.
Yeah,
Would then be offset by the endowment into the future?
Yeah, so it's an average about $50,000 a year for the first 5 years of monitoring. Is much more in depth of a mitigation bank than the in perpetuity monitoring that would have to happen.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Board Member Grable?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. It was really informative, the presentation that you gave at the contract review subcommittee, and still very supportive. I just wanted to point out a few things that you brought to us at the contract review subcommittee that I think you mentioned here, but just wanted to reiterate. This seems to be one of the only sites in Sonoma County that I've heard of where you have a proposal for a mitigation bank on, lands classified as CTS habitat, where there's also been documented presence of CTS, presence of animals, continuously over the past few decades, whereas many of these other properties, especially in Southwest Santa Rosa, for instance, it's considered CTS habitat, but we have no documented presence of animals in many, many years, right? And so from a conservation standpoint, but also how do we rebuild a really, really precarious population? It's like, well, it's got to be based on real, on real presence of animals and opportunity for growth and genetic diversity with the population that's also on the property to south. So I just really appreciate not only the long-term fiscal models and saving upwards of $13 million and all of that, like that's wonderful. But when you're just talking about conservation and biodiversity, and we see the image of this salamander on a lot of postcards and posters of really what we can do for species on the brink, especially amphibians, which are some of the most delicate in terms of climate change, it gives that credibility to this work, right? It says like, this is not a ghost. These are real creatures that have had a precarious population for a long time, and this will legitimately rebuild that, as well as give obviously all these mitigation opportunities and credits and all the finer bureaucratic points. But when I show this kind of stuff to my daughter, or my kids, it's like, okay, mitigation credits, yeah. But like, what is it doing? What about the animals? What is it doing? And in this case, it's not hard to say this is what it could and will do because of the data and the proximity and just the presence of the species, right? So I just really appreciate all those elements and the thoughtfulness in the plan.
Any other board member questions or comments? Board Member DeWitt?
This bad boy on. Hello, thank you for this nice presentation. I'm curious because it's especially important with the city about to go into even more difficult financial times. Are there opportunities to use other lands owned by the city, such as parks? There's, there in the Southwest, as you know, there are lands that Southwest Community Park actually has one spot that supposedly was designated as a federally, I don't know if about mandate might be the word, but at one point, the California tiger salamander were there, and then a fence was put up. The city has that right next to Southwest Community Park. Is there a way that we can turn that into a mitigation pond also? Because it doesn't look like much activities occurred there. Are there ways to save the city even more money? Because one comment was made, when we run out of the credits there, the city will continue to grow, and unless the best way to put it is, unless there's some sort of agreement that comes up with the federal government and the state saying that we're no longer burdened by these protections of this species, this could go on for a long, long time. Is there a way we can save more money at other city-owned sites? Thank you.
I think there is, for sure. I can't speak about that property. I have been in that property. I've done dip netting, looking for tiger salamanders in there. I've worked with Dave Cook on that project. I don't believe the resource agencies see that pond as being viable given the neighborhood that was built around it. There's no upland habitat for the tiger salamanders adjacent to that pond. Most of that was converted to housing. There are other efforts that are going on. The county is looking at doing a habitat conservation plan that will look at developing additional mitigation properties that would be open to more than just the water department. But right now, if you were to go out onto the market, as Board Member Wright pointed out, you won't find 100 acres of tiger salamander credits available for purchase. And so the developers are working with the county to come up with a plan that they could continue to do their development according to their general plans, and that the planning would have done in advance, identified additional properties where this could occur. The water department does own some properties around the wastewater treatment plant that we call our buffer properties. Some of those could be used, and they're also adjacent to other tiger salamander mitigation banks. I will say the complication of working on the properties that already have an easement on them is formidable. We've learned through this process, not impossible yet, but it is something to factor in when figuring out which properties make the most amount of sense. So properties that aren't burdened by a conservation easement or recreation covenants or anything like that would be more beneficial for the species recovery.
that in mind, one follow-up. So from what you've just said, the agencies look at the site at Southwest Community Park as not viable. So maybe it's time for the city to step in and get that land, take the fence down, and utilize it elsewhere, something else. Thank you.
Through the chair, if I could just chime in, Director DeWitt, Board Member DeWitt, sorry. It's a good question, and there are a number of locations where during the development of a park property, it's identified during the course of the environmental study that a certain portion of the property needs to be set aside for some type of mitigation, depending upon the species that's most prevalent or most likely to survive or thrive at that location. We do have parks that have standalone set-aside mitigation areas, and we do our best to try to manage and maintain those. The difference with those set-asides and the actual concept of banking is one of acreage and land and the creation of something new for the benefit of future development. The acquisition of park properties for active use, even under the aspect of passive use with a park, it does not always lend itself to mitigation banking. So I certainly understand the point, and I think from the wildlife preservation component, when we do acquire and look to develop, environmental considerations are always evaluated, and particular practices will be put in place if it's determined it's appropriate.
Thank you kindly, sir. The kids out there want soccer fields.
Okay, any other board member questions or comments? If not, we'll open it up for public comment on item 7.1. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. Seeing no one, that'll conclude item 7.1. Thank you again, Deputy Director McNeil. We'll now move to item 7.2. Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Our next staff briefing is our 2023 annual compliance update, and Heather Johnson, our environmental services officer, I always do that wrong, will be making the presentation.
Thank you, Director Burke. Good afternoon, Chair Galvin, members of the board. Welcome to the board, Board Member DeWitt. I am here today to present the 2023 compliance update. I realize I should have specified that it is the Laguna Treatment Plant's compliance update. I'm not speaking for all of water here. So just a quick overview of what I'm going to present on. I'm going to talk about some of the permits that we have at the treatment plant, the control mechanisms that regulate our processes. I'm going to summarize our finalized phosphorus compliance for the 23-24 discharge season. I will go through some of our special projects that have been required as part of our NPDES permit. And then I will just do one quick summary on our NPDES permit renewal. So I've grouped together our wastewater treatment, our recycled water, and our biosolids. They have 3 separate control mechanisms. The wastewater treatment is covered under our NPDES permit. The recycled water and biosolids are both covered under statewide general orders. Recycled water is for the distribution and use, and biosolids is for land application. This table shows the non-compliant events that we had for those 3 processes in 2023. Some of them are self-explanatory, but just to summarize a few of them, for our reclamation system, we actually did not have any reportable spills or runoff events in 2023, but we did have, so the largest that we had was 800 gallons. The limit is 1,000 gallons for the reportable. And that one was due to a line break, and it was isolated pretty quickly, and it was repaired. It was towards the end of the season, and so it was repaired prior to this 2024 irrigation season. For our UV exceedance that we had, our ultraviolet transmittance dropped below its allowable limit for approximately 31 hours. Because of that, we had a low UV dose at the same time. Typically, when we see transmittance issues, it's because we have gotten in a higher volume of trucked leachate or gray water, or the central landfill has given us a large volume of pumped leachate from their pipeline. In this instance, however, our environmental compliance section went through, they looked at all of the volumes of those types of waste that had been brought into the plant, and it actually wasn't from any of those sources. So it was an unknown for us on this one. For the total coliform, we had 8 days where we exceeded our 7-day median, and then we had 3 days where we exceeded the 23 most probable number per 100 milliliter limit in a 30-day period. Similar to the UV, we don't quite know what caused that excursion, or those excursions, I should say. Oftentimes when we don't know with coliform, we think that it was likely caused by algae interference in the UV system. Okay, so for our air emissions, we have 2 permits. They're pretty similar. However, the federal Title V air permit is a 5-year permit, and then the permit to operate is an annual permit. But the conditions basically mirror each other. The exceedances that we had in 2023 for those permits was when we did our annual source testing on our combined heat and power engines. We exceeded the limit for precursor organic compounds, or POC, on all of the engines. We're pretty sure that this was caused by the sampling company that does the tests. They used an incorrect test method, and it's not suitable for biogas that comes from wastewater treatment plants. So moving forward, they're going to use a different method, and I'm pretty sure we will not see POC exceedance in the future. For carbon monoxide, we had an exceedance on our engines 3 and 4, and that was due to failed oxidation catalysts on those engines, which are part of the abatement device. We're getting those replaced, and the engines are offline until that happens. We had 4 days where we exceeded our high-strength waste throughput. We have a limit of 46,000 gallons per day. We went over it. The mitigation process that we put into place because of that exceedance was to install an alarm system. So now it will alarm, and it will shut off the pump, and we will not go over that limit again. And then I did want to let you all know that in 2023, we received a settlement offer from the Air District for violations that occurred back in 2020 on engines 3 and 4 for their firing rate. And we settled that and paid a fine of $6,000. Okay, so our phosphorus compliance for the 23-24 discharge season, I think that some of you have probably seen some of these numbers before. They might have been a little bit different. These are our finalized numbers from our database, and so these are the ones that we report to the regional board. Just a quick recap of what's going on here. We started the season with a little bit over 5,300 credits. We generated almost 17,000 credits this year. A lot of those are due to the sediment removal project that we did at Colgan Creek. And then during our February and March discharge events, we discharged a little bit less than 5,000. So we are heading into the 2024-25 discharge season with over 17,000 credits, which is pretty good. All right, so our NPDES permit is nearing its end. We're at year 4 of a 5-year permit term. This permit had a lot of special studies that they wanted us to do, and some of those have been submitted, and some of them are just now being finalized. So the salt and nutrient management plan was actually submitted back, I think, in 2021, but as part of that plan, we're required to install 5 new monitoring wells And we did that in 2023. So 3 of the monitoring wells are around the city's Delta Pond, and 2 of the monitoring wells are east of Willowside Road in our irrigation area, but close to Ambrosini Pond. And we'll monitor those 4 times per year, and they will look for any impacts of storage or use of recycled water on groundwater. We completed a disaster preparedness assessment report and action plan. This was required for us to look at any vulnerabilities that we may have due to climate change and natural disasters that come as a result of climate change. And then finally, it hasn't been finalized because it's due with our report of waste discharge, but we did finish the sampling part of our pathogen special study just this last year. And what that did was it looked for E. coli and DNA host markers in our Delta Pond and D Pond, which store recycled water, but are also our main discharge points. And I will say that for the E. coli, we did not find any pathogen levels that were anywhere close to the proposed limit. And then when we submitted some of those results for the DNA marker analysis, we looked for humans, we looked for birds, and we looked for some other mammals. And the vast majority of any pathogens that we do have in our ponds is coming from birds, and that's because birds use our ponds as habitat. So finally, I just want to say our report of waste discharge is due at the end of this year. It is due in October of 2024. If you don't know what a report of waste discharge is, it's just what they call a renewal application for our NPDES permit. We have hired a consultant, and so the consultant and staff are meeting to go over some of our, to look for any areas that we may want to seek changes in for our future NPDES permit. We also have met once with the regional board just to go over some items that we're already aware of, and then to see if there were any surprises that we should know about for our new permit. There was really nothing that was groundbreaking, but they did tell us that they are operating about a year behind, so we will likely not see our permit until 2026 or later. But nevertheless, we have to submit our application on time, so we will do that. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for the presentation, and I'll open it up to any board member questions or comments. Board Member Wright?
Thank you for your presentation, very good. I just can't believe it's been 4 years or 5 years since our last permit. I can't believe how fast that seems to go. We're always... So my first question is, if they're going to be a year late, do we get an extra year on our permit? So we work under our permit now for 1 more year, and then 5 years after that, so we effectively get 6 years in a sense?
They will administratively extend our permit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good, so we get a little bit of extra time.
But I agree, it went by fast.
And so also, I have to say, I'm very happy to see that our mitigation credits are at a nice robust 17,000 or more credits, and thank you for that, or very good work, staff. So I forget, does this permit also cover the local system? I noticed there was no SSOs mentioned in your reporting, and is that reported under a different permit, or did we have none?
It is, I don't know if we had none or not. It is covered under its own control mechanism.
Okay, all right. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Other board member questions or comments? All right, we'll open it up for public comment on item 7.2. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. See no one, that will conclude item 7.2. We have 2 items on the consent calendar, item 8.1 and 8.2. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll move adoption of the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion by Board Member Arnone, seconded by Board Member Grable to approve the consent calendar. This time we'll open it up for public comment on the consent calendar. Seeing no one rise, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Member Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Grable?
Aye.
Board Member DeWitt?
Abstain.
Board Member Bartholow?
Aye.
Board Member Badenfort?
Aye.
Vice Chair Arnone?
Aye.
Chair Galvin?
Aye.
Let the record reflect that the consent calendar passes with 6 affirmative votes, with Board Member DeWitt abstaining.
Thank you. Next is item 9.1, a report item. Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Our first report item is a funding agreement between Sonoma County Water Agency and Santa Rosa Water to implement Phase 2 of the Direct Install Water Use Efficiency Project via grant funding from the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation Water Smart Water and Energy Efficiency Grants Program. And Stacy Hatfield, our Revenue Operations Supervisor, will be making the presentation.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chairman Galvin and members of the board. My name is Stacy Hatfield, and I am the Revenue Operations Supervisor. I bring to you today the funding agreement between Sonoma County Water Agency and Santa Rosa Water to implement Phase 2 of the Direct Install Water Use Efficiency Project via grant funding from the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation Water Smart Water and Energy Efficiency Grants Program. It's a mouthful, and we love it.
Through the chair. Stacy, would you mind just pulling the mic a little closer to you, please?
Course. Is that better? A little bit? How about now? Much better, okay. What is a direct install program? Santa Rosa Water uses qualified plumbers to purchase and install toilets and fixtures at no cost to our customers. We have had a variety of programs for toilet replacement throughout the years, including rebates, distribution, and direct installation. In Phase 1 of the direct installation program, we received over $1 million in earmark funds from Senator McGuire, which allowed for installation in all customer classes. The remaining funds from Phase 1 are being utilized for commercial, institutional, and industrial customers, and this grant will pick up where Phase 1 left off for single-family and multifamily residential customers. The City of Santa Rosa is working in partnership with the Bureau of Reclamation and Sonoma Water. Sonoma Water applied to the Water Smart Water and Energy Efficiency Grants Program, also known as WEEG. This is administered by the United States Bureau of Reclamation. It provides funding for projects that result in quantifiable water savings, implement renewable energy components, and support broader sustainability benefits. These projects conserve and use water more efficiently, increase the production of renewable energy, mitigate conflict risk in areas at a high risk for future water conflicts, and accomplish other benefits that contribute to sustainability in the Western United States. The Sonoma Marin Saving Water Partnership, or Partnership, was formed to identify and recommend implementation of water use efficiency projects and maximize the cost effectiveness of water use efficiency programs in our region. The partnership is comprised of 13 water utilities in Sonoma and Marin counties, collectively addressing regional water efficiency solutions. 11 of these 13 partners are participating in this grant. The grant total is $2 million, with just under $2.5 million in matching funds from each of the partners, or from the total of partners, I should say. Sonoma Water is providing $813,933 to Santa Rosa Water, and the Santa Rosa Water match is going to be $994,848 plus staff cost time. The funding became available on February 16th, 2024, and must be spent by September 30th, 2026. Even though the funds were available earlier this year, we will not start utilizing funds until we begin work on Phase 2, subsequent to the approval of this agreement by this board. The funding match would come from existing Water Department capital improvement funds with no additional impacts to operational budget. Staff time is needed to manage the proposed project, but it would be captured within already budgeted staff resources in the Water Resources Division. Our responsibility to the grant includes participating in the program, providing match funding, conducting marketing to promote the program, providing quarterly performance reports, communicating with Sonoma Water on budget tracking and any other issues, and monitoring in the fashion of providing access to records, procedures, work sites, and programs to ensure compliance of grant agreement. Sonoma Water's responsibility will be to coordinate and administer the grant, take care of reporting and reimbursement requests, and distribute the grant funds. For the direct install program, we have an existing list of plumbers from phase 1 of the direct install program. These plumbers were selected and certified as part of a request for qualifications competitive process, which concluded in 2023. When contractors were bidding and selected for phase 1 of the project, they were informed there was a possibility of a second round of funding under a grant, and they would be able to participate in the install of those packages if they remain in good standing for their performance in phase 1. For phase 1, we had advertised the RFQ to 80 local plumbers through direct email and phone calls, in addition to the plumbers and installers registered on Planet Bids for proposals such as these. 6 plumbers responded to the RFQ, 5 received installations in phase 1, and 4 will receive installations for phase 2. This will be the most cost and time-effective approach to delivering phase 2. The plumbers will remove any toilets with a 1.6 gallon per flush or greater and replace with a 0.8 gallon per flush toilet. They will remove and replace shower heads and aerators with high-efficient models. This program is a first-come, first-served project, and it's open to all residential customers. It will allow approximately 2,500 toilets and fixture packages to be replaced, resulting in approximately 2,600 acre-feet of water savings, which is the equivalent of 1,282 Olympic swimming pools. This is the question my husband asked me when I gave him this presentation. Over the lifetime of the fixtures. So next steps. So far, we have set up a QR code and a website allowing customers to be on a list, therefore to be notified when the program starts. Once the program opens, we will update the website to accept applications and email anyone on the notification list. We can then start pre-qualifying customers, marketing, and proceed with installations. So it is recommended by Santa Rosa Water that the Board of Public Utilities, by resolution, approve the sub-awardee grant agreement between the Sonoma County Water Agency and the City of Santa Rosa for the direct install water use efficiency project, delegate authority to the Director of Santa Rosa Water to enter into the agreement and execute any future agreements, authorize the designation of existing funds for the cost share required, and recommend to the City Council that the Council authorize receipt of the grant funds and appropriate the grant funds into the Water Department budget. Any questions?
Thank you for your presentation. I'll open up for any board member questions or comments. Mr. Nutt?
Thanks, Stacy. I appreciate the presentation. Question for you. Do you have any idea, any rule of thumb, guess as to how many non-compliant or non-efficient toilets are still remaining out in the public?
There's been discussion as to whether we should do a saturation study to find out. We don't have an exact number, but we know that there are still quite a few out there.
There are no other questions or comments. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adopt a resolution of the Board of Public Utilities approving the sub-awardee grant agreement between Santa Rosa Water and Sonoma Water, delegating authority to enter into the agreement and execute any amendments to the Director of the Santa Rosa Water Department. authorizing the designation of existing capital improvement funds for cost-sharing requirement for the grant, and recommending that the City Council of Santa Rosa pass a resolution appropriation action by the council, authorizing the receipt of grant funds and their appropriation to the Water Department budget, and waive the reading of the text.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Arnone, seconded by Board Member Grable. We'll now open it up for public comment on item 9.2. If you have any comments, please move to the podium. Seeing no one, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Member Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Grable?
Aye.
Board Member DeWitt?
Aye.
Board Member Bartholow?
Aye.
Board Member Badenfort?
Aye.
Vice Chair Arnone?
Aye.
And Chair Galvin.
Aye.
Let the record reflect that that passes unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you again for the presentation. We'll move to item number 10, which is public comments on non-agenda matters. If you wish to make a public comment, please move to the... Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, 9.2. Director Burke?
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Our last report item is approval of amendment number 2 to project work order with Green Valley Consulting Engineers, Emergency Well Pump Station, A Place to Play, construction, management, and inspection. And making the presentation will be Chris Balanese, our Associate Civil Engineer with the Capital Projects team.
Didn't mean to cut you out, Mr. Balanese, sorry.
So, greetings, Chair Galvin, members of the board. My name is Chris Balanese, Associate Civil Engineer with Transportation and Public Works, Capital Projects Engineering. So today I will be presenting on the requested approval of amendment number 2 to the project work order with Green Valley Consulting Engineers for the emergency well pump station at A Place to Play for construction, management, and inspection. The project itself is located off of West 3rd Street, situated at the western entrance of A Place to Play Park. The purpose of the project is to develop a municipal well pump station for emergency use. The development has included site grading, construction of a well and water treatment building, rehabilitation and development of the water well, and connection to city water, sewer, and stormwater facilities. The well was originally installed in 2006 and reconditioned, sampled, and volume tested in 2016. The information was then used to design a facility for emergency use. May 2020, the construction contract was awarded to Team Gelati. In November 2020, the construction was placed into a temporary suspension when water sampled during the contracted well work yielded arsenic concentrations in the groundwater above the state maximum contaminant levels, or MCLs. During the project suspension from November 2020 to October 2021, bench scale testing was performed to provide feasible water treatment alternatives to reduce the arsenic concentrations. As a result of the testing, the treatment methodologies and additional infrastructure were then adapted to the approved plan set. To implement the plan changes, a change of scope contract change order and contingency increase were brought before BPU in October of 2021. The approval formalized the additional water treatment equipment and filtration room to the well building. February 2022, construction resumed utilizing the revised plan set. So as shown in the picture is the foundation of the well building. The well is encased in the concrete, and the filtration room addition is shown kind of looking like it was just added on. So some pictures of the progress. The building being constructed out of the CMU blocks and the concrete parking area. Some of the internal framing and electrical components, as well as the decorative fence visible from the park. So on-site work progressed until the project began experiencing electrical material delays. June 2022 was the originally anticipated Tesco Motor Control Center delivery date. The date changed multiple times, and November 2022, the project entered another suspension due to the Tesco material procurement delay. In June 2023, the City of Santa Rosa staff accompanied the consultant designer on site at the Tesco manufacturing facility for a factory test. The testing yielded several design comments and required acquisition of further information. After much anticipation, the Tesco Motor Control Center was finally delivered March 2024. The work suspension was lifted. From March until present day, the building electrical, plumbing, and mechanical work has progressed. The project is nearing completion with operation anticipated by fall of this year. Green Valley Consulting Engineers has been responsible for construction management and on-site inspection services under a master professional service agreement project work order executed by the Assistant City Manager. Project suspensions and the material procurement delay prematurely exhausted the contract value. The proposed amendment number 2 provides additional compensation to Green Valley Consulting Engineers for continued construction management and inspection services until project completion. So it is recommended by our office and the City of Santa Rosa Water that the Board of Public Utilities by motion approve amendment number 2 to the project work order number A010146-2016-20 with Green Valley Consulting Engineers of Santa Rosa, California for the emergency well pump station, a place to play project for construction management and inspection services, increasing the contract amount by $146,773 for a total value of $645,147. Questions?
Thank you. We'll open it up for any questions by the board. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that the Board of Public Utilities by motion approve amendment number 2 to project work order number A010146-2016-20 with Green Valley Consulting Engineers of Santa Rosa, California for the emergency well pump station, a place to play project for construction management and inspection services, increasing the contract amount by $146,773 for a total value of $645,147.
Second.
We have a motion by Board Member Wright, seconded by Board Member Badenfort. Open it up for any public comments on item number 9.2. Seeing none, we'll go ahead with a roll call vote, and hopefully Board Member Grable will be back shortly.
I'll try to go slow. Board Member Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Grable is not present currently. Board Member DeWitt?
Aye.
Board Member Bartholow is absent. Board Member Badenfort?
Aye.
Vice Chair Arnone?
Aye.
And Chair Galvin?
Aye.
And that passes with 5 affirmative votes with Board Members Grable and Bartholow absent.
Very good. Thank you again for the presentation. Now we'll move to item 10, which is public comments on non-agenda matters. Seeing no one rise. We have no referrals. We have no written communications. Any subcommittee reports? Any board member reports? I will report to the board that within the next day or two, you'll receive a memo from me with updated committee assignments. Appreciate your willingness to serve on these committees, and we'll move forward with that. Is there an
Ask, would you like me to be on a committee?
You are going to be on, I believe it's the Water Conservation Committee to start with.
Sure.
You're welcome. We'll take public comments on item number 14. Seeing no one rise, we'll move to the director's report. Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. I have a short update for you all today. First, I wanted to let you know that we're getting ready to do our annual geysers shutdown, and that is going to be occurring from August 5th through August 19th of this year. As you may be aware, the annual shutdown is an all-hands operation where our teams perform scheduled and unscheduled maintenance, including pipeline inspections, valve turning, pump station inspections, and inspections of ancillary equipment. This year, our electrical team will be focusing on the Llano Pump Station electrical equipment maintenance and inspections, and the Geysers team will also be assisting one of our consultants, Delta Star, with the regional wastewater treatment plant substation transformer inspections. During the shutdown, our team focuses all their efforts to tackle the maintenance tasks that have the potential to disrupt the geysers operation, so that hopefully we can limit any pump station shutdowns during the operation. So this is always a really big effort by our maintenance teams out at the regional treatment plant, and I just wanted to recognize that this was coming up and that they'll be spending a lot of time and effort on this. I also wanted to share with the board some good news regarding our trucked waste program. As you may recall, we take different high-strength wastes out at the Laguna treatment plant via trucks, and we continue to see a robust demand for the program. And with that, we are seeing a corresponding growth in the revenues. For fiscal year that ended on June 30th, 2024, the program generated $4.5 million in revenue, which exceeded our projected revenue budget by over $1.3 million. And that's a 25% increase in revenue generated as compared to the fiscal year that ended in June of 2023. As you may be aware, this is a really important program for our partners at the treatment plant because this revenue goes into directly offsetting the costs that we spread to our partners, and continues to be a really great addition, not only for Santa Rosa as a owner and operator of the treatment plant, but to Santa Rosa as a partner in the plant, as well as our regional partners. And that is my update, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you, Director Burke. Any questions or comments for the director? All right, we'll open it up for public comment on item number 15. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. Seeing none, that concludes our agenda for today. Again, welcome, Board Member DeWitt, and we're happy to have you aboard. So with that, we're adjourned. Have a great rest of your afternoon.